Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 376, recorded for Monday, November 17th, 2025. This is a podcast all about Minecraft, and it is available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, including video versions on Spotify and on YouTube. If you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing. My name is Joel Duggan, and joining me, as always, is my Minecraft friend in arms, Johnny, also known as Pixel Riffs on the internet. Hello, sir.
Hello, yes, the Minecraft discussion already started about 20 minutes ago, actually, because we've been chatting it up about Minecraft in the render distance. It's actually kind of rare that we get into Minecraft discussion before the main show. We usually talk about what's going on in our lives, other games we've been playing, movies and TV and that kind of stuff. But Joel has been watching a lot of Liz, a streamer who's been checking out Minecraft for the first time and publishing all of her adventures and hijinks to YouTube. So we got recommendations for streamers that you might want to watch if you're into finding their way in Minecraft for the first time, especially if you're folks like us who have been around the block when it comes to Minecraft. So once again, you can hear all of that discussion and more over at The Render Distance. That's the extended version of the podcast that our patrons get access to if you support the show at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. We also do events for our patrons. We have monthly hangouts where they can share what they've been up to in Minecraft. There's lots of people with a range of experience, always a great time. So once again, patreon.com/thespawnchunks if you want to support the show and join our community.
Coming up this week on the episode, we have a Java update, we have a Bedrock update, and we have emails about gameplay drops and more in our Chunk Mail Dispenser episode. We've got 4 emails to get to this week.
Yes, yeah, lots of stuff coming into the inbox, which is exciting. Lots of people getting excited for Mounts of Mayhem, and it seems like things are narrowing down to a release at some point in December, so hoping to have more to say about that soon when we get into the news. But first, Joel, tell us about what's new on the Citadel.
So I have sorted out a block palette, or at least the beginnings of a block palette, for the command center on the Mushroom Island, and it feels good. It feels good to have some blocks chosen. It also feels very familiar because there's a lot of gray, and I was trying to avoid more gray and brown, but it turns out when you're building in sci-fi, your block palette is really limited because a lot of the blocks that are colored also have either patterns or textures that just don't look like anything else but what they're supposed to. Wood is a really good example. You're kind of not available to use a lot of wood in sci-fi builds. I feel like some of the pale oak might be able to pass because it's white in most parts, but it's also very warm. So like it doesn't necessarily match with other white blocks like diorite or calcite, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It might go better with quartz. So it was challenging to pick a few blocks. I did want to go with some contrasting colors as well. So I've got some blues for highlights and some orange for highlights. I'm leaning on orange for maybe some of the lights because it turns out that a lot of the grays that I've chosen are a little bit more cool. So things like tough, it's got a little bit of green in it. Cyan terracotta is also a cooler bluish gray. And so having a warmer orange for some of the lights and the highlights is going to work. But then any kind of like color pops and other kind of sublighting or track lighting, I'm trying to go white or blue. So as I've been going through, actually I'm just realizing now I forgot to bring over a screenshot of another inspirational image, but I'll include that in the show notes as well. Trying to figure out a good way to not have the whole thing be one color, like trying to use different elements to change up the materials and move from like one gray to another, or in this case, actually, surprisingly, I think I'm going to be keeping a lot of the polished diorite. It actually works quite well in context as like a metal panel, as does polished andesite and polished tuff. And so I've been able to work with those, same with polished deep slate. And because they all have the same sort of outline, that chamfered outline on the block, one, it makes it easy to count when you're designing something, which was the idea behind the diorite. But two, because they all have that vibe, it looks like painted versions of the same block. When you line up 4 of them next to each other, it's just like this is in shadow, or this is a darker color, or this has been painted. And so I've been able to use those to my advantage. And as much as I wasn't planning on keeping the diorite, I think a good chunk of it is probably going to be kept as diorite because it does work really well. And then of course, any color that you put next to it, because the diorite is so white, it really does show up quite well. It creates a lot of contrast. So I've used some orange terracotta and probably some sandstone, some red sandstone blocks, depending on whether I need slabs or just to create some variety and texture, because smooth red sandstone and orange terracotta are actually quite close. They just have a slightly different texture. So it works well as like weathering or a highlight, or if you wanted to add stairs and slabs into something. And so that's providing me a little bit more for options. Same thing with like tuff, deep slate, and diorite. I have stairs and slab options if I need them. And so that's another push towards those blocks. I do want to work in things like calcite, as well as maybe some concrete powder and some other blocks. I don't know if I'm going to get to just regular diorite, but I feel like that will allow me to create some texture on some of the larger areas of just plain plain diorite. So it's been fun to work with other blocks I don't normally work with, and nice to be able to move away from the stone and the andesite. I did actually play around with some andesite early on, but it really reminded me of Westel. And so I am using some stone, but it's in smaller portions. And again, the only real push there is because stone is such a neutral texture. It almost passes for anything. And it has stairs and slabs again. So it's one of those things where as I'm building shapes inside of these wings, I can mess with it. And that's really kind of the thing that's been taking up the most time, because these things are so large and I'm trying to do some iterations to figure out what I like. One of the best ways to do that with a symmetrical build is to build two faces, or build something like two parts of it next to each other that are identical, but then change one. And so right now I'm working on the east wing. I had finished part of the north wing. And so I'm working on the east wing and I'm trying to change it up. I'm trying to change the direction of making the kind of aircraft carrier look of it a little bit more narrow. I'm going to be changing some of the materials. Some things I like some of the stuff I like is the tuff. I like the blue glass. I like the orange stripe. So those are going to stay the same. But I might move the position of the stripe. I might see what it looks like when it has like a more of a chamfered look. I might change the size of the numbers that I've got on the side of it. So I'm going to do that kind of stuff. I'm going to go back and forth between like the left and the right in the screenshots that I'm sharing, and until I get one that I like. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's the design. Now I'm going to repeat it 8 times around this giant build. So when you're not doing anything in creative, when you're going through this stuff in survival, I really find that it's really helpful to do something where you can see both sides, or build two if it's like a symmetrical castle. If you've got 2 towers, or you've got 2 roofs or 2 houses, whatever, build one different than the one that you just built. And if you want them to be identical, then do some A/B testing between the two, see what you like before you start to commit to the rest.
Yeah, it's nice, especially if you're doing a lot of this building in survival without the creative test. It's kind of like a good way of still doing trial and error, and like you're going to keep the shape of things, and you're going to keep like a lot of the block choices here, and then it's just varying up the details, the stripes, the decoration, and you're probably not going to like repeat exactly the same stuff. In this case, you've got like the number emblazoned on the side of things, and you're not going to need that number absolutely everywhere, because it's pretty clear from one look at this angle of the build. It says 03 on it. You don't want to have that also over there, and like, you know, using the same details absolutely everywhere. But dude, you're nailing this. Like, this looks great.
Thank you.
And I do think, especially like with the level of detail that you have in here, it's something that you can get a sense of the scale of it being massive when you're up close, but at a distance, it's still going to read really well. Like, the number is the right sort of size, the stripes look really good, and you were talking about the diorite kind of looking like overlapping like metal plates or whatever. From a distance, it can read like a solid color, and it's only when you get closer that you start to realize, okay, there's actually kind of like interlocking, you know, mechanism or whatever there that's going to make it feel a bit more like, okay, this is the scale of things now, and you're sort of looking up at the edifice of it. Like, I think that's a really solid start to the aesthetic of this thing. Like, the wireframe looked like it was the right sort of scale, like it seemed like it was coming together really well, but having seen bits of this filled in, like, it genuinely looks really great.
Thanks, man. It's been fun to have it filled in and sort of feel that mass come together, because the wireframe, you're like, okay, you get how tall it's going to be and how wide it's going to be, but you don't feel the weight of it. It doesn't look solid. It doesn't look heavy. It doesn't look supported. I've had to change a couple of things. Like, I had much smaller doors and much smaller door frames. And then I filled this thing in and I was like, oh, woof, this looks like it's standing on spaghetti legs. Like, I need the door to be like 5 blocks wide on each side. Like, it needs to be chunky in order to feel like it holds this up. And I'll have better shots of that as I get to more, designs of the door. That's the other thing that I'm doing an iteration on, is like, there's 2 doors right now on the base level, kind of like hangar bay doors. And one is different than the other. Like, one is 3 blocks wide. The other one's 2. One's got yellow and black caution paint on the ground. The other one has got white and gray caution paint on the ground. So like it's different. It just depends on what I'm going for as a vibe, because I want it to look recognizably as sci-fi and recognizably as a hangar, but I don't necessarily at this point want to make a commitment to make it look terrestrial. Like I don't want it to look like human. So like black and yellow is a very human caution thing, right? And so I might want to just do something different. But yeah, it's coming together, and I feel like one of the harder parts is the scale is something I'm happy with, but it also provides some challenges because of course everything is very high up, and I'm building a lot of things in a with depth and being able to move things around and change things around. So I've been using a Happy Ghast for
I was going to say the screenshot of the Happy Ghast. I'm like, are you finally coming around on the Happy Ghast? Is it working for you yet, or
absolutely not. I mean, I'm using it. I'm using it because it's more efficient than scaffolding. Like scaffolding up 40, 50 blocks and then only having 5 or 6 blocks to your left and right is useless, right? Yeah. Like you'd have to scaffolding up, then use dirt. I might as well just build up dirt. So like it's not the best. And there's some things that were easy with the Happy Ghast. Building the underside angles of the wings when they were just a wireframe was a breeze with the Happy Ghast because you weren't looking around. You were strafing. You were just using your WASD keys to move left and right. And because you were going up at an angle, it actually lent itself to the movement of the Happy Ghast, because the Happy Ghast doesn't move it moves in a straight line, but it's never really parallel to the ground unless you're really, really trying. You have to be looking directly level in order for that to be a thing. So I find the Happy Ghast incredibly frustrating. I'm constantly, now this is a muscle memory thing, I'm constantly hitting shift to go down and I'm popping off of the Happy Ghast. Which is fine. I'll just sigh briefly on stream and then just get back on. I never dismount to do anything. I'm constantly needing to move around the build, so I never actually dismount and walk around to the back of it. I just mine and place blocks from the pilot seat, which means that I'm subject to the mining debuff, so it takes longer to mine things out if you make a mistake. Because if I'm removing something over the course of 20 blocks. I don't want to like remove 5, get back on the Happy Ghast, move it, stand up again, mine 5 at insta-mine. So that would be probably longer than the slow-moving Ghast. But I find it really frustrating that when you're on the Ghast and you're looking left and right with your mouse, that the Ghast turns slower than you do. So when you turn to look at a block and you stop, the Ghast keeps going. It's really great in animation for overshoot and settle. If you ever watch an animated movie or one of the classical animated Disney cartoons, then the overshoot and settle is essential to making something look believable. It's frustrating when it's your POV. So when I stop in a block to mine it, I want to mine that block, but then the Ghast might point to the block to the left and I miss mine a block. And it's like, I just want to do what I know how to do in this game. And that combined with having to look down or look up to back up at an angle is infuriating. Like the amount of times that I'm trying to do something and I end up either being too far away or too close to what I'm doing and having to reposition constantly is just really, really tricky. I feel like the only time I've ever used the Happy Ghast from it's like, okay, this is a good use for it, is when I've been doing something horizontally in a straight line where I'm strafing. You know, like I'm mining something out or I'm placing something down. That kind of stuff is okay. It was pretty handy to do the orange stripes because, of course, I built the whole thing first and then I kind of like painted on the stripes by going through and mining out the blocks, testing different angles. And I could reach about 6 or 8 blocks vertically from a midpoint. And so I only had to reposition the Ghast like 3 or 4 times to get the whole height of the stripe. But it was still like really tedious that I couldn't just go down at the right angle, because if I look down, I'm still technically traveling towards the wall or away because I'm looking at the wall. So ultimately you end up with the wall like right up to your face, and that's not where you want to be. And then backing up is not great either, because unless you're looking dead level, you back up and you go down, or you back up and you go up. Again, all of which brings you out of reach of what you want to do. So I really dislike the movement. I'm surprised that it's this difficult to get used to. And I'm actively looking for a mod that either changes the controls of the Happy Ghast or at least gives me hotkey options to be just like, let's just press shift to go down. On the Happy Ghast, we'll use a very specific hotkey to dismount. And I'd rather learn that than have to constantly be backing up. Like if I had the ability to go straight down, like you can go straight up, I think it would be a much different game. As far as playing on the back of a Happy Ghast. Like if you were at the right distance from a wall to mine and texture it, and if you pressed up, down, left, right, if you just went in those directions, I feel like it would be great. I shouldn't say up, down, left, right. It would be space bar and shift for up, down, and then your A and D keys for left, right. Like that would be ideal, but it's not the case. So I've found it very frustrating, and I'm trying my best not to complain too much on stream. One stream I was just on a rant, but after that I catch myself and it's like, look, I'm using it, so it's obviously the best option we have for this kind of work. And I might change my tune if I'm doing the underside of something or a ceiling, that might be different. But right now, doing vertical walls, like it's a real pain.
Yeah, like I remember back in the day playing a bit of modded Minecraft with jetpacks and them having basically like a hover key that you press that and it kind of locks you on the y-axis, so the WASD keys become just strafe in each direction. You kind of feel like the Happy Ghast needs something to have it be like stay, but stay at this like height, and then you'd be able to control it. Because like I can absolutely see the frustration if you're looking up at a 45-degree angle to place something on the underside of something. If you want to move forward, you either have to look down and move forward, or you have to like turn awkwardly to the side and strafe left or right, so you're kind of like skirting around it like a crab to get into the position that you want. Otherwise you're moving towards the wall and half the time suffocating yourself in the blocks. So,
I've done that a couple times too.
Like I can see it's definitely a muscle memory thing. I think it will get easier with time, but I totally don't blame you. I think they're an acquired taste, Happy Ghasts, so far. So I'm glad that you're at least giving it its time of day. You're giving it like a chance, and I'm glad that it's working out for you in the sense that it would be more awkward to do it in other ways, so it's sort of the lesser of two evils at this point. But like I feel you.
Thanks. Yeah. So I mean, it's something I'm gonna have to figure out because I've got 4 of these wings to do, right? So I have to figure out an efficient way to do it. I mean, good news is once I figured out a block palette and a pattern, then repeating the pattern from the ground up, like I could potentially just build up as I go and get rid of a lot of the need for it and just use the Happy Ghast for details or things that make sense, like long straight lines of glass or things like that. But there's a certain amount of relief I get when I get to the top, which has like a platform. I just use dirt just because I needed something to stand on. And sometimes you don't realize how much you're disliking something until you get off of it and you're like, fine, okay, this is much better. Like you almost get used to the frustration, and then when you go back to normal, you're like, oh, this is so much better. Like that shouldn't be the feeling. Like the feeling should be the same. Like it should be, yes, it's different. Yes, it gives me an advantage, but it shouldn't be frustrating, I think is the problem with the design as it stands right now.
Yeah, entirely fair. And who knows, maybe there's mods out there that could help with the controls. Maybe there's, some tweaks to the Happy Ghast that could come in future. We've already had emails in the past about them having like a flute that lets you control them better and that kind of thing. So I wonder if that kind of stuff could be on the cards if other players have been voicing the same frustrations.
Speaking of building at scale, how are things with David?
It's going well. I've started the next section of the beacon mine by this point, so I'm digging out the 100 by 100 or so area immediately adjacent to where I've already built the copper aging machine that I have so far. As before, it is still only at the stage where I can load it manually. I haven't started building some of the more automatic platforms that you just put an entire thing of copper on and it slices it up for you and distributes it amongst the circuits. I'm going to do that soon. I just thought, get an episode out about the first half of it and then call it a second episode to do the remainder of the revisions. However, having started the next section of the beacon mine, I immediately, or almost immediately, encountered a double zombie spawner that is in the area right next door, basically the area that I plan to build the second part of the machine. And so I'm considering at this point scrapping what I was going to build here because it does take up a pretty significant vertical chunk of things. The spawners are stacked on top of each other with only like a couple of blocks difference on one of the horizontal axes, but they are outside of the range where they would interfere with each other's like mob cap and everything. So I have a lot of potential for turning this into a drowned conversion copper farm. and having it be right next door to the area where I'm aging all of the copper. The problem is I want to build the machine on this side of the room, and so it's going to be a situation of whether or not I think I can make this into an efficient enough farm that it is worth converting a double zombie spawner into a copper farm, rather than just bringing all of the copper from where I've been mining it or build a river-based drowned farm somewhere else. So I've been looking into, like, reinforcement mechanics are different now. You can't build a copper farm in the end the way you used to, because if you hit a drowned, it no longer spawns zombies as reinforcements. It spawns other drowned as reinforcements, and those have to adhere to the reinforcement. The spawning rules for the reinforcements have to be the same as the spawning rules for the original thing that got hit. So if they're drowned, they have to spawn in water, which means that they take longer to get to the center of the farm because they're traveling through water towards the player, and drowned do not move very fast compared to zombies that would just walk into the center of the farm and get converted previously. So a bit of research needs to be done into the technology behind things and whether it's still viable or whether it's kind of like negligible benefit and I might as well just destroy them and carry on with what I was doing. I don't really want to destroy spawners. It feels like sacrilege every time you do it, but sometimes they're just in the way. I've already done that with 2 geodes, by the way, so the geodes are like completely gone. But with this, it gave me pause for thought. So I've been considering a list of pros and cons here. The pros being it's a very convenient location. And it's a fun spawner project that I haven't tried before. I've definitely done a double, even a triple zombie spawner in the past. I have never done one that converts them into drowned. And I think that's a nice way of incorporating it into the very coppery nature of this whole project, while the Copper Age is still also fresh in people's minds. It's also right next door to where I built the existing copper aging circuits, and so with a bit of a reorientation of where I plan on building some stuff, I would still be loading all of the copper aging stuff while the farm was in use. So if I was killing drowned over and over again, I'd still be standing around all of this copper. There would be less need to like chunk load everything with ender pearls or nether portals or whatever to make sure that all of the copper could age. I'd be there because I'd be producing more copper for the farm. The cons are that I don't know how effective it's going to be at actually producing copper. Still need to do a bit of research into that. Obviously, it's taking up space where I plan to build things, so I need to dig out like another massive slice of this cave area in order to continue building what I wanted to build there. And also that I would need to be there. Like, I can't just chunk load it and let all of the copper aging stuff go in the background and also run a copper farm that's killing zombies over and over again, because their player kill drops to get copper ingots, so I can't have the zombies just die automatically, and I would need to be in close proximity to the spawners to have them even activate. So I have lots of thoughts about all of this, and really it just comes down to, can I turn 2 zombie spawners into something that is worth basically forcing myself to dig out another whole section of this cavern in order to supply a renewable source of copper and not worry about getting that copper through other means. Getting it through, mining out a huge vein of copper is probably going to have a higher yield, but then you deplete that vein of copper, it's gone forever. I like the idea of having a renewable supply. It's just, do I do it through this? Do I hope Mojang maybe introduces other ways that you can farm copper in future? Seems unlikely at this point. So, yeah, I'm weighing up the possibilities right now.
I don't know how much you've been scooting around on the Discord, but it took me a while to find this because I saw it, but I couldn't remember where I saw it. But in Piston-powered, Wormbo is building a drowned farm. So you might want to check out what Wormbo is up to in our Discord to kind of get some inspiration and maybe some info in terms of the scale. I'm going to hesitate to say that it might be worth it to build your drowned farm somewhere else. I think just because of the idea of relocating and having to mine out another room for David.
Yeah.
I feel like the time sink and the monotony, for me, this is my personal feedback, would be to sacrifice the spawners and then just find another way to do it, because you can do it. I think if this was the only way to do it, then I think it would be worth it. But because it's not the only way, to Minecraft's credit, like there's multiple ways to do a drowned farm. I think that would be great. I have built one of these. It was with a single zombie spawner. It's next to my geode farm outside of the Southport Modern City, and that was back when the zombie I think I'm using a different kind of mechanic. I think that I'm using the zombies to spawn more zombies.
Yeah.
And then I'm drowning them. No, I must be killing drowned, because then the drowned are summoning more zombies. I think you're right. Like I think the mechanic that my older farm is using is no longer it no longer works.
Yeah, it's the one that got patched out because drowned and husks and other like the
Yeah.
zombie variants basically used to spawn just regular zombies as reinforcements. They don't anymore.
But I could potentially just waterlog the farm and have it all be like, do they need to spawn in like blocks of water, like full 3 blocks of water, or can they spawn in like water at their feet?
I can't remember the exact requirements, but
Right.
the problem I think is that drowned they need to be in like full blocks of water, I believe. I don't know if it has to be like it can be flowing water maybe, but zombies won't spawn in the same circumstances. So I don't think you could just flood the entire room around a zombie spawner and still have zombies spawn, because they need a solid block to be on.
Oh,
Or I think with
yeah.
spawners it kind of spawns them in mid-air, but I think it won't do it if there's water, which is why you always build a water tank sort of like underneath them. So
Right.
yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the particulars of that myself.
Yeah, I was talking about the reinforcement platforms. So
Right,
my
yeah.
zombie spawner, the only thing the zombie spawner does is supply the farm with zombies.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a start button. And
Mhm.
so once I get some zombies going, then it's the reinforcement platforms are well outside the zombie spawner.
Yeah,
Because I have to where I kill the drowned has to be close enough to the zombie spawner for the zombie spawner to even work. And so it's like there's a giant T shape above the spawner, and that's my drowned farm. So,
Yeah.
but I haven't used it in forever because I haven't needed to. And now that I have a trial chamber, I'm just going to mine that. Like that's my level of copper for me is just like I just need to get the copper there. But yeah, that's a tough call. And I mean, like on one hand, you'll get a lot of attention for destroying 2 spawners. I mean, they're only zombie spawners. It's not like they're that useful.
Yeah.
Still.
That's what I considered at first. I kind of said, well, I'm going to have to get rid of this one when I found the first one, and then I kept hearing zombie noises, and I went, oh no, there's going to be another one here, isn't there? And with them being in such close proximity, and then I think it was somebody in the Twitch chat said you could convert these into drowned, and you have a copper farm right there, and I went, yeah, but is it going to be good enough or not? Like, am I really going to be able to get that much copper out of it? And then I thought, like, can I find a way? And so now I'm stuck in that part, and I'm going to give it some thought. I'm going to give it some space, and maybe if anybody in the community has some ideas that they want to send my way, you can find me on Blue Sky, or send an email into the Spawn Chunks email address even. And
sure,
if it's something for us to read on the show, or if you just got recommendations, let me know, because we're going to be focusing a lot of this episode on email after we get through the news. So there'll be lots of opportunity to send us some mail.
And in the news this week, Minecraft Java Edition Snapshot 25W46A was released. With this latest release, we're putting some additional polish on the upcoming features for our Mounts of Mayhem game drop and changing the order of spawn eggs in the creative inventory for some better thematic flair. On the technical side, resource pack creators now have more freedom when creating their block models. Changes in 25W46A. Under mobs, parched are now immune to the weakness effect. Horses, mules, donkeys, camels, zombie horses, and camel husks will not panic if controlled by mobs. Nautilus and Zombie Nautilus now play a dash sound when they perform their dash attack. Changes to items. Spears no longer cause item interact vibrations. Spawn eggs are now sorted thematically in the creative inventory according to the following categories. In the overworld, farm animals, mounts, pets, wild animals, aquatic, miscellaneous, golems, villagers, undead, spiders, monsters, and illagers. And then the other spawn eggs are just in the nether and the end accordingly. In the UI changes, added an inventory UI for the Nautilus and Zombie Nautilus, renamed the Show Music Toast option to Music Toast, added a third state to the Music Toast option, allowing it only to be shown in the pause menu, added splash text, one does not simply walk to the far lands. Developer note, this statement was proven false on October 4th, 2025. Technical changes, the data pack version is now 93.1, the resource pack version is now 74.0. Under the data pack changes, item components added food properties to the following fish bucket items: Minecraft cod bucket, Minecraft salmon bucket, Minecraft pufferfish bucket, and Minecraft tropical fish bucket. For loot table changes, loot tables have been reverted and removed of contents as supported value for the Minecraft dynamic loot pool entry. A developer note, support for this value was removed in a previous snapshot with the introduction of slot sources, which replaced its functionality. Community response, however, indicated that certain use cases aren't yet fully covered by slot sources, so we are reverting this removal until proper alternatives are ready. The resource fact version, as I mentioned, is 74. Textures used for still water and lava are now hard-coded to their respective Minecraft block files. Block model and state format have been expanded to allow more rotations. Textures, the beacons no longer support translucent textures. And to go into the details of the block model changes, block model elements can now be rotated around multiple axes. A model is first rotated around the X axis, then the Y, and then the Z. A note from the developers, names of faces are not influenced by rotation. Features that depend on them, like culling, will always use the original directions. For the full details of the technical changes this week in the snapshot, visit the Minecraft.net changelog linked in our show notes. Some fixed bugs of note in 25W46A. You can perform spear jabbing and charging attacks simultaneously. Players' arms visually intersect with their bodies and heads when holding spears while riding boats. Nautilus mouth texture is misaligned. The search fields in the resource and data pack menus aren't automatically selected when opening the menu via keyboard navigation. Camel husks show breeding hearts when fed. The texture of netherite horse armor is different than the Bedrock edition, and charge attacks now have reduced damage when used after a jab attack. These bugs, as well as many others, have been fixed, and the full list is available in the Minecraft.net changelog article linked in our show notes this week at thespawnchunks.com.
In Bedrock Edition news, a new update released Thursday, November 13th to address issues discovered in the 1.21.120 release. The developer's note says, huge thanks to everyone who's been sending us bug reports and feedback around the game on Windows. We're actively investigating all the reports coming in and working to improve game quality. We'll keep you all updated on further improvements through these changelogs. Please keep the bug reports coming in through bugs.mojang.com. The major issues this changelog says have been fixed are that mouse cursor moves in background during gameplay, increased memory utilization from improving input latency, fixed an issue where pink textures could occur on Windows devices, and fixed several crashes that could occur during gameplay. We'll have that changelog linked in our show notes as well for anybody who wants the full details of any of those. Meanwhile, Minecraft Bedrock Edition Beta and Preview 1.21.130.27 is also released. This continues to bring refinements to the Mounts of Mayhem drop, with fixes for the Nautilus, Camel Husk, Parched, Zombie Horse, the Spear, and all of their associated mechanics. It also adds a colored static block lighting option under the Render Dragon Features for Creators toggle. This feature is only available in previews using vibrant visuals in worlds with the experimental toggle active. Static lighting is additive and accumulated, so overlapping lights of different colors will cause lighting to appear brighter. Overlapping lights of the same type, i.e. the same color and the same light emission, do not cause lighting to get brighter. This developer's note says the static lighting experimental feature is under development and may look or behave differently as development progresses. Once again, you can find the changelog for the beta and preview in our show notes at thespawnchunks.com.
Those lighting changes are really interesting.
Yeah, I found out about them while I was looking for information about some of the technical issues, because I've heard sort of secondhand from Bedrock Edition players that the Bedrock Edition releases lately have been a bit of a mess. There's been some technical issues that have genuinely prevented people from playing comfortably on Windows, and we'll get into that in a second. But as I was looking for like Reddit threads on that, I stumbled upon a thread of screenshots from a user called Super Jedi Player. We'll link that in the show notes as well. And this, as a feature, feels like it should be a much bigger deal, because it's lighting on the kind of style that we've seen from Minecraft RTX in the past. But I thought it was genuinely a feature that felt exclusive to a ray traced or path traced engine being applied to vanilla Minecraft. I didn't think it was going to be something they would touch with vibrant visuals, despite all of the changes that they've made and the kind of color map stuff. But in this case, while it is buried in the changelog, I did a little bit of looking into it, and the screenshots that Super Jedi Player gave might be extreme examples. They might be versions where like the torch color has been changed or enhanced or something like that. But There are some in which light combines to form different colors. You've got red and green lighting next together that make kind of an orange kind of hue to them. And I think it's really exciting to see colored lighting coming through, even if it's not necessarily something in the vanilla lighting engine. It's not something that has any kind of gameplay implications. It's really just a quirk of vibrant visuals. This is the kind of stuff that players absolutely love if they're builders and want to add more atmosphere to their builds. It even changes the atmosphere of pre-existing Minecraft environments. There's a screenshot from an ancient city where the soul lanterns look different to the torches that are used to light up those like watchtower style structures in there. And everything looks very creepy and atmospheric. And so I think if this is something that they're tinkering with behind the scenes, it feels like it deserves a bigger signpost. Unfortunately, that's been overshadowed slightly by all of the technical issues on Bedrock Edition. And hopefully people don't mind me going into this, but one of the pieces of feedback we get pretty regularly for the show is a request for more discussion of Bedrock Edition, which is a little difficult because neither Joel or I are regular Bedrock players. But what I've heard from other folks recently is that this memory issue that was happening that seemed to be related to the improved input response setting that you can toggle off, or apparently in the latest changelog they've said they've decreased the amount of memory that was using. There was an issue with textures basically reaching a limit where if you had multiple add-ons that used a lot of different texture files, that basically meant that it ran out of memory to store all of the textures. And so stuff in like menus and things like that, and like the textures of chests and horses were just showing up completely pink. And it just looked like a massive visual glitch was happening to your world. And this is on Windows as well. It doesn't seem to be happening as much on consoles and other devices, but the Windows version you feel like should have access to more resources than consoles, depending on the age of the machine you're playing on. So it seems kind of a surprise that that's the platform that's been having the most issues. But the worst thing, apparently, was there was this issue with the cursor still being active in the background. So you think about the amount you look around in Minecraft using the mouse, your cursor was moving around the screen throughout all of that. But because it's in full screen, you don't necessarily see where the cursor is going. If it ended up at the bottom of the screen and you clicked on your Windows taskbar, because you were in full screen in Minecraft and it was like you tabbed out, it would minimize the Minecraft window. So you'd be mining stuff that was on the ground below you, and suddenly you wouldn't be looking at Minecraft anymore, you'd be looking at your desktop. That's the way I've had it like explained to me, at least. And some players got around that by playing Minecraft in windowed mode, and I believe they've now introduced a borderless windowed mode, which should help somewhat with that. But yeah, it was just that the cursor was still free moving throughout. It supposed to be focused on the Minecraft window. It wasn't, and that was a real issue for a lot of people who, especially in like the content creator field, like folks on Truly Bedrock and stuff like that, had been struggling with that for a while since the most recent major update to Bedrock. So yeah, I'm happy for them that that's been fixed, and hopefully fixes continue to come through for people who are still being affected by those issues, because yeah, everything I see from Bedrock players right now is they're having a bit of a miserable time.
And refresh my memory, but if you're a Bedrock player, like you are just playing the latest version. You don't really have an option to play last year's Bedrock, right? Like you can, unlike Java, you can't just pick a version that's stable or working in the way that you want with your system and stick with it. You kind of are rolling forward constantly, right?
That is unfortunately the case, yeah, and it's one of the things that I think has kept me away from Bedrock for a little bit longer, aside from just the kind of different gameplay disparities. They've even started eliminating some of the stuff that was my holdout for issues on Bedrock, like not being able to number hotkey stuff on Windows. You can do that in the game now, so you can organize your inventory that way, which is huge for me whenever I go to Bedrock Edition and go, oh, okay, I can actually control the game the way I'm used to doing it on Java. That's one pain point that has been removed. But yeah, the fact that you can't roll back to legacy versions if something is wrong with the current version of the game kind of means everybody in the community is lumbered with the same issues, which is why you've seen such a big outcry about this on all of Minecraft's social posts and Reddit threads and things like that. I continue to extend my sympathies to the people who do QA, because it must be difficult to do QA across so many different potential devices and platforms. You've got consoles, mobile, and PC to think about. But this does seem like one of the worst incidents that Bedrock has had in recent memory. So hopefully this is just a storm that we can all leave behind us sooner or later. But yeah, right now sympathies are with the team and with Bedrock players while all of this gets sorted out.
Flipping back to the lighting, the shots that were shared on Reddit with the stained glass is really encouraging. Like that's got some cool looks to it, like putting purple stained glass and then having the light behind it change to purple. Like that's That's solid. Like I really like that. Something that happened because of the shaders on stream recently that I knew about but I had forgotten about was I moved my nether portal and now it faces a different direction. And so when the sun rises or sets, the light from the sun in the game passes through the portal and creates a purple shadow or purple tint on the ground
Yeah.
as it passes through the portal, as if the portal is like a piece of stained glass. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I wish the rest of the stuff did it because, like, I'm choosing blocks in my sci-fi build that are colored-esque. Like, they're not colored lights. The light that a frog light gives off is just light. But depending on the little pixels on it, it looks orange or it looks green or it looks purple.
Yeah.
And so I've been using the orange frog lights because, or the ochre frog lights because they look like they match the best. They look kind of orange. Vice versa, a Androd very much reads as white, like just pure white track lights, right? And so I've been choosing blocks based on the kind of light they appear to give. But if I could control that, like imagine if you wanted to have a bunch of red lights, you know, in your build, and the only thing that you had to do was just put red stained glass over them. And you could do all kinds of stuff. Like you could have a wall of lights or light sources covered in red glass, and then you could cover that with stairs that allow light through but only have like certain holes. Like you could have these little quarter block red lights all over the place if you if you designed it right. Like the options are almost endless in terms of what you could do. That part is exciting to me. Same with the block models. To go back to Java, like I thought that the idea of the block model rotation was really interesting because that gives custom, you know, mod and data pack authors, I think, a lot more control over what they're doing. I think a really good example would be the kind of stuff that we do see on servers like Hermitcraft, or what's the other one that you played on that was that had a bunch of custom models and mounts and stuff like that.
Misadventures has done stuff like that, and we've had like little bits and pieces of that on Empires as well, but like that was long enough ago that I think stuff has come along even in vanilla Minecraft to the point where Misadventures is operating on a slightly different level.
Yeah, so like you can rename an item and it then takes on a block model, but then you could also, depending on what you're doing, like even just a data pack to, like, let's say that you wanted to have certain blocks be placed sideways, you know, like that can't happen like fences, for example. If you wanted fences to go sideways like a lightning rod, right? Then you could do that with this ability in a data pack and not have to have a mod. Like it could still be available to vanilla. And I think that kind of stuff is interesting, if I'm understanding this correctly. Like that's the other asterisk I have to put in here, because I'm not a coder, I'm not a mod author, so I don't know. But it's just, it seems like they're just constantly giving more options technically to players that like to dabble under the hood in Minecraft, which I think is really cool.
I think the custom rotation thing is so interesting, based on some techniques I've even seen like Lego builders use in the past that are like quote unquote illegal techniques, where they'll be building a castle wall and they'll like kind of attach pieces together with like a net to make things look a little bit kind of you know, like the castle wall bricks are kind of sticking out ever so slightly in places. You can imagine doing that with a stone brick like rotation ever so slightly, and so you could have some bricks of the wall that are like slightly offset at an angle and make it look like there are kind of footholds in places. And you know, you could maybe even take it in the direction of vertical slabs if you wanted to do something like that. Like there's a few maybe like backdoor supported things that players have wanted for a while that this could be one solution for, if you want to data pack something in that allows you to rotate slabs or half blocks or, you know, anything like that.
Well, that actually ties in quite nicely to our first email. If you want to email the show, the address is spunchunkmail@gmail.com. If you want to keep your email short and to the point, we would very much appreciate it. It does help us keep it included in the show. And if it's got something to do with the current zeitgeist around Minecraft too, like that's always a nice way to get into, like, join the conversation is a fun way to get an email in. If you're a patron, be sure to leave your patron level in the subject line and the fact that you are a patron. It does help us organize the emails, and sometimes when we want to follow up with someone, if we know that they're a patron, we can just grab them in the Discord and, you know, clarify something, that kind of thing. So again, the email address is spunchunkmail@gmail.com.
And our first correspondent has done just that. They've let us know they're a landscape artist. It's Elkhorn95, who's been a staple of this community for a good while, writing in about parity gaps in mobs with the Mounts of Mayhem update on the way. Hey, Johnny and Joel. I agree with your assessment that the Mounts of Mayhem drop feels a little lackluster in its offerings, but one thing that it does seem to be doing is filling in mob parity gaps. A desert skeleton to go with the desert zombie, zombie horse, and a camel husk to go with the new undead Nautilus. Could Mojang use these kinds of smaller drops to add some block parity as well? I'm thinking cracked stone and stair variants, tile textures for more of the various stone types, or walls for the polished versions of the older stone types, etc. Or would that add too much to these smaller game drops? Curious to hear your thoughts. Elkhorn95 rode his zombie horse off a cliff, daydreaming about stone, andesite, diorite, and granite tile blocks.
I mean, I think the more frequent update schedule is a great time to add new blocks or block variants to the game. We saw that a little bit with the Copper Age, when you've got different versions of chains and things like that. I think that when there are textures that players have been asking for a while and they're not new blocks, it's even easier. So cracked stairs and slabs is a really great example. I was talking about this for a long time when I was building Westhill, when I wanted to texture something and I had to switch to a different texture because cracked slabs and stairs are just not available. So when you're building up or down, you have to choose something else. And I don't think that that's a difficult thing to include in these drops, because the drops are, like you said, smaller. I think that one of the issues that I've seen, and if I may, this may be a little bit of a soapbox, but the drops are still themed. Even though these smaller updates are meant to not be the big, like, aquatic update, nether update, caves and cliffs, like they're meant to be smaller, they still theme them. The last 4 have been Spring to Life, Chase the Skies, the Copper Age, and Mounts of Mayhem. The only one of those that brought in new blocks was the Copper Age. And I'm splitting hairs here because, like, there's dry grass and fire for the bushes, but they're not technically building blocks, as Elkhorn was pointing out in the email. So because of those small drops being themed, it feels very odd to then, like, tack on this other stuff, right? So everything in these drops have been pretty much focused on the kind of things that they're talking about. Like Spring to Life had the animal updates, but it also had a lot of plant life. Like, it's sort of very nature focused. It made sense. Stone bricks in there would feel kind of like against the grain because of how it's themed. And so if Mojang moved away from theming these drops and theming them in the title anyway, I feel like sneaking some block variant updates or even new blocks in there could be a little bit easier. I did see a comment on Spotify recently that the Mounts of Mayhem is adding mobs and mounts for flavor and not function, and that's okay. I'm paraphrasing. As like a retort to us complaining, like, there's really not a lot going on in this update. And I think you're right. I think it's fine to add flavor to the game. Like, not everything has to have a function. Sometimes it can just be a decorative thing. And I think that's great. But if you're going to call it Mounts of Mayhem and everything is just decorative without a lot of function to it in terms of the mobs or the mounts, then you're not really adding mayhem. You're just adding mounts of flavor, right? Mm-hmm. Or Mounts of the Undead, or Ride or Die. Like, choose your name here.
Ride or Die is honestly a better name for this update.
Not bad, right?
Yeah, I like that.
And so when you have something like that, you know, ultimately I can hear the comments and saying, like, well, Joel, you're getting very hung up on the title. Well, yeah, that's how marketing works. Like, if Mojang is trying to sell or get me interested and excited about this drop, calling it Mounts of Mayhem and not delivering much mayhem is kind of a misnomer. And I feel like that kind of thing is meant to appeal and excite new players, because obviously there's no purchase involved. Like, people are already playing Minecraft that are interested in that kind of thing. And that's why it's not called Drop 1.21.11. Right? Because that's not at all interesting or exciting, you know, for other than the people that are like us, that are like eyebrow deep in Minecraft and just want to know what's coming and don't always care about what it's called. I think that's one of the things that is challenging. And I want to say, like, I don't envy the marketing team. I don't envy the people coming up with the names for these things, because it's a double-edged sword. You know, like, if you name it, then it creates within the Minecraft community anyway a certain level of expectation. Yeah. And if you don't meet that expectation, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. vice versa, we have complained on the show about like, gosh, I wish they would just name this thing so we can stop calling it the winter drop for weeks before we know what it's called, because then we don't know how to refer to it, because it's not an update, it's not it's a drop, but it's, it gets confusing. And I think they've kind of put themselves in a really difficult position in terms of coming up with the names of things. But I do feel like overall, to go back to what Elcor was saying, that to get things like block updates or color variants or different things in these drops, I think that one of the easier way to do that would be to back away from the themed names or the themes that are within these drops. If they're just going to be an update, then I feel like you could potentially have a little bit more going on. Or like they could also sprinkle in like, maybe there's a themed update like the Copper Age, but maybe another update could just be like textiles and textures or something. And just maybe they're just adding a texture update to various blocks in the game because they can't really find a common theme. So theme it under like the technical change. Like what, like is it a redstone update? Is it a texture update? Is it, color related? Like whatever it is, kind of lean into that, which means that you're not going to be necessarily thinking that a wood block update and a stone up block update in the same drop are like not thematically linked because it's called like the texture update or like whatever it is. So I feel like that could be a better way to kind of squeak in some of these things. I don't think Elkhorn is going to get all the things that he wants at once.
Yeah.
But I could see them potentially choosing certain things to maybe drip in over time when they're ready, when they're, fitting to what's going on. But yeah, that's my rant. I'll get off the soapbox now.
No, it's all good. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do think the interesting thing about Mounts of Mayhem was this was the first time since the Wild update that they've announced the name first and then given us a look at features.
Right.
Like, obviously, they did have a fair amount of features to share at Minecraft Live, and they have built on that by adding new stuff week on week. Like, they've actually kind of shown us a few more features as they've been going, and I don't think the community has really taken Mounts of Mayhem and, like, gone the wild speculation route, especially because now we've had about a year and a half of gameplay drops. It feels like we don't have as much time for that like window of speculation anymore, because it's not like they're announcing stuff, giving us a 2-month wait before the first snapshots come out, and then we start to actually see what the features are. I think in this case we're getting a much shorter kind of time period there, so players don't have as much time to speculate, go off the rails, and then get disappointed. But I agree with the mayhem aspect of it. I think seems to be mainly driven by the inclusion of the spear, and that's not necessarily paired with all of the mobs, or it's kind of up to the player to create the mayhem. But you hear Mounts of Mayhem, you think like rideable dragon burninating the countryside, right? Like that's the kind of thing you're thinking of. So like I do think there's some odd stuff going on there with the name, but again, they have to make it sound kind of interesting, and they have to find ways of introducing features which are maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but still market them. And I think that's also going to be the case with blocks and stuff. Like, there are some folks out there who aren't really going to care if you add concrete stairs and slabs, and there are some people who will go absolutely nuts for that stuff. In retrospect, looking back at some of Minecraft's previous updates, thinking of concrete specifically, I could see updates like World of Color, which was 1.12, the update right before Update Aquatic. I could see that being a gameplay drop now, because what that did was add parrots, and then it added concrete and concrete powder, and also glazed terracotta. And that felt very kind of tight, thematic, it was colorful, it didn't have a whole lot else to add gameplay-wise. It also, I think, changed the achievement system to advancements on Java and did a bunch of back-end stuff that was kind of interesting. But there were a lot of things where it added like a toolkit for builders and didn't do a ton of additional stuff. And that was really the turning point where they started going towards more thematic updates with Update Aquatic and like larger content offerings with these sort of consecutive updates. I do think if they ever decide it's time to add concrete slabs, stairs, walls, that kind of stuff, that feels like drop territory now. That feels like, okay, we're adding, cracked granite to the game. That's happening in a gameplay drop versus it being some part of like, whatever big thematic gameplay offering comes along with version 1.22. But I think each gameplay drop so far, even if it's added variants of things, like the mob variants in the most recent thing, or if you consider the Happy Ghast a variant of the Ghast, it still added new stuff. If it's transformed pre-existing gameplay mechanics, like the way leads work differently now after the Happy Ghast was introduced, it still added additional things like the dried Ghast as a concept. It's added that. It's added the saddle, the harness kind of mechanics, things like that. And they've sort of overhauled a couple of background systems that were there in the first place, but they've given us a new approach to gameplay. So I imagine if variant blocks do end up getting added, they would want to add a couple of new features alongside that. Maybe they add limestone as a new stone type, for example. You can find that elsewhere in the world. And alongside that, they start to add in some of the cracked dried granite and the different stairs and slabs of the cracked stone brick variants and that kind of thing. I can see those being packaged together, and that's what lets it be a kind of thematic gameplay drop while still adding a suite of new tools for builders.
I think something that might have that coming would be the update to vibrant visuals for Java. Like that might be such a technical hurdle or require enough work that maybe that in itself is its own update. And the update to vibrant visuals for Java, that would be a really good opportunity to add in any kind of like new blocks or new textures or texture variants, or an update to existing textures that might look very different or not look great under vibrant visuals. Like if existing Minecraft textures that are older under vibrant visuals don't really work the way that Mojang wanted or intended them to, then, and maybe they require some changes, like that could be an opportunity to say, okay, well, yeah, we're updating vibrant visuals, but you're also going to get some new block textures or some new variants or something within there. Again, all kind of like leaning into using vibrant visuals as a building tool, which is what they've kind of positioned it as. Mostly, I mean, it's also an experience tool in terms of like dark caving and excitement and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, they were talking about how light affects your builds, what direction you're building something in, all that kind of stuff on the surface. And I think that that's going to be an opportunity to tag in some potential texture or block updates.
Yeah, if we see vibrant visuals coming to Java, it better come with that colored lighting that we saw in the Bedrock preview.
Man,
I will,
cool.
I will be so excited about being able to illuminate my cracked concrete slab or whatever with like a torch that illuminates like a specific color. Like I'll be all about that. So yeah, we're keeping our eyes out for more information about vibrant visuals, but I kind of feel like it's going to come along as its own separate thing rather than in a gameplay drop. I like the idea of packaging it together with some improvements for builders, though. That could be a possibility if they want to launch it with more of a bang, I suppose.
Our next email comes in from Popeye Popsicle, more non-nitwits. Hey there, Spawn Chunks. My son and I have been listening to you lately, and he has an idea that might be off topic, but he's really excited about it. With a nitwit villager breeding with a non-nitwit villager, they should have a 10% chance of having twins. If 2 nitwits breed, it would be a 33% chance of twins. This would give nitwits a function in Minecraft, though very small. Popeye Popsicle was slain by a skeleton. The nitwits are very distracting. You gotta keep your eye out behind you. You never know who their friends are. the nitwits, like yes. They might, they're not the brightest. So I guess they keep skeletons around for no good reason. What do you think about this, Pix?
It's a fun idea. Like genuinely is a fun idea. I can already see folks using nitwit villagers in villager breeder builds anyway, because they don't have any other purpose. They don't have the workday part of the time, so all of their time is spent socializing, which means they're potentially always looking for breeding opportunities. So I think having the possibility of them having twins, and especially if it increases if 2 nitwits are involved, would be a really neat way to quickly expand a village population. And if their offspring were a variety of different villagers, then that makes sense. I don't think you can breed nitwits, right? I think they're a villager that you find on world generation of a village, but you don't end up getting nitwit villagers as part of breeding new villagers, unless that's changed recently, but I don't think it has.
No, I think you're right. I don't ever, because in the little experience I have with breeding villagers for like our trading hall and stuff like that, I don't remember culling any nitwits, because you wouldn't have any use for them if you're trying to trade with them, right? Because it just wouldn't exist. So I think that makes sense. I think an additional function for nitwits would be great. Outside of the extended Minecraft community, is there anything in the game that indicates that their nitwits are not useful, like other than just like trying to trade with them and having it not work? Like I feel like there's just like, why can't I right click on this villager is the only indication that you get that they're just different. I'm assuming Nitwit is an under the hood name that's been percolated out into the public.
Yes, yeah, it's something I think Jeb called them originally, and the name sort of stuck around. I believe that's
Right.
what they're called in the code as well. But yeah, like there is no obviously there's no Nitwit UI, so there's no real way
Yeah.
of understanding that that's what they're called. And yeah, I think that's fine in terms of like their role in the village. I feel like it kind of casts a weird light on like village society, and then maybe kind of describing one villager as like the stupid one or something. Like it doesn't seem particularly fair if we're using this as an analog of human society in general. But I think the notion that you would be excited about having a nitwit in the village because it means like a chance to breed up the village population faster and have more access to villager trading seems like a fun way to spin that positively. And I was thinking about it because we don't see a great deal of other animals in Minecraft producing multiple offspring. The two examples I could think of were turtles, because they'll lay multiple eggs and the eggs can hatch into multiple young turtles, and the rare occasion that a thrown egg produces 4 chicks, which happens occasionally, but it's like very, very slim odds. I think it's like 1 in 256 or something like that. So you even have like rabbits. They don't have any unique breeding mechanics, which you would imagine was a characteristic of rabbits from the real world that might map quite well onto Minecraft if they have like a shorter breeding cooldown or something like that. They just breed the same way as other animals. And I've definitely heard suggestions in the past that like pigs could produce a larger litter because that would give them an edge over farming cows, because you also get leather as a useful drop from cows. So if you just got to breed multiple pigs at once, you could build up a food supply slightly faster. So I like the idea of there being a bit more diversity to breeding mechanics in Minecraft, not just in terms of the way like animals are bred, but the result. And I like the notion that can also apply to villagers, and the nitwit idea seems really fun to me.
Yeah, I wonder if with animals, because I like the idea of livestock having the opportunity to have more, because that would be just like a fun surprise from a breeding pair. But maybe it could be food related, like in the same way that there are better food for the player. Like I've not thought to try to feed a golden carrot to a pig, right? Like I just assume that they're good for me, but I don't really. I mean, technically, I don't breed pigs anyway, but like even breeding chickens or cows or anything like that I've done in the past, like I've just done it for a very specific purpose and I've not really thought about what it is. I'm just like, oh, that's the food that they get and that's what I'm going to do. And so that could be a fun way to do that in a very kind of Minecraft fashion, golden apple, golden carrot, something a little bit more end game or farther down the food exploration line. I would imagine you'd probably want to keep it in the realm of like found food, like carrots and potatoes and wheat, as opposed to something that you'd bake, like pumpkin pie or something like that. I don't know how you would communicate that to the player, other than maybe an achievement. And that was the other thing I thought about the nitwit thing. Is like I'm not sure how you communicate that nitwits are going to potentially give you twins, outside of just like trial and error. And if it's such a slim chance, like you'd have to be around to witness it before you would learn it.
Yeah,
so then maybe an
suppose
achievement.
So.
Like 2x2 or great minds think alike or birds of a feather or like something in the achievement menu that says like, breed twins from, a nitwit or from 2 unlike villagers. Or, again, because the game doesn't call them nitwits, they just call them villagers. So like, I'm not sure how you would do that, but I do like the idea of nitwits having some sort of use in the game. I feel like previously I've used them mostly, unfortunately for them, as bait. That's kind of like
Yeah.
if I needed like, to attract a zombie, or like, I don't remember if the old iron farm didn't have villagers in it. And the new one has to have, I think we've got farmers, but I'm trying to think about like other cases where I've used a villager in like a mob farm or something, where I've needed them to be, potentially disposable and then thought like, all right, well, I don't want to waste like a villager that's a potential profession that I'm going to be using for trading later on, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, I do think it is the lot of nitwits to unfortunately be put in these more dangerous situations, but it's it's one of the reasons I think villagers make such good characters in like the animated shorts, like we've seen Element Animations do, is that they've got, it feels like you can project a range of personalities on them, and the nitwit is sort of a blank slate for the player to sort of assume whatever they want about this freewheeling lifestyle that they happen to lead.
The villager in the Minecraft movie that goes through into the real world. Is that a nitwit?
I believe it is. Yeah, the one that
Yeah.
Jennifer Coolidge like falls in love with. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a
Yeah.
nitwit. Yeah, now that I think about it, it definitely is a nitwit. Oh God, the movie. Anyway, let's
Sorry.
before I go down that road, let's go on to email number 3. This one comes in from Wilder, who's a landscape artist in our Discord again. So thank you so much for the support. And the email, the subject this time is vanilla vibes. This is a question specifically for Joel, actually. So I'll ask it. Hi, Pix and Joel. Joel, do you find the furniture data pack you use in West Hill feels like vanilla Minecraft? Whenever I see furniture in Minecraft, I find it immersion breaking and kind of jarring. There's just something about the giant hunk of stair in the middle of a room. Do you find it important to maintain a vanilla vibe when adding mods or data packs? Wilder got squished by all the stairs he was trying to arrange.
So to directly address the tables and chairs data pack, yes. Specifically, I use that one because it was the one that looked the most vanilla. It was designed and maintained by Axel, or Chuck Chuck at the time, and I was attracted to it because it was kept very close to Minecraft. It deviated more than I wanted, and so I decided to learn how to make models in Blockbench and mess with the textures. And then in doing so, Axel saw what I was doing on stream and actually took that, asked me to send the models in, and used my models as inspiration for, I think, the next version. Now it's had several versions since. It's had another person take over. Mr.7 is now the one looking after the data pack. And it has always had like additional stuff. Like I use the most vanilla versions of the chairs. There's thrones and more ornate armchairs and things that kind of get outside of what I feel is vanilla Minecraft. But the things that I liked about it was that the models, for the most part, stuck to the 16 by 16 pixel grid that the textures are in. So you didn't have anything that was like 32 by 32 or 64 by 64, which is what I find makes things feel either really modded or just like not like Minecraft at all. And then the textures were not custom. An oak chair just uses the oak plank texture wrapped around the model in different ways. And so it was really easy for me as like a novice model maker for Minecraft to just model a chair that looked like it fit the game and then just slap on the existing Minecraft texture. So it looked like it fit right away. And so that is what drew me to that data pack in the first place. I think it's a matter of subjective preference, but I think stairs in the middle of the room look ridiculous. They're ginormous and chunky, and they don't, for me, really look like a chair. Especially when you want something that has 4 legs on it, right? And also tables and chairs was the data pack. So the tables were another big draw because not only can you place tables that look like tables in Minecraft with the data pack, but you can also put things on them. You can rest things on top of them, where if you do a fence post and a pressure plate, which does kind of look like a table in Minecraft, you can't do anything with it. You can't put anything on top of it. If you want to have something like a flower pot on a table in Minecraft, you have to just put a block down or make a trapdoor table. That doesn't always look right, depending on how you have to do it. And there are so many sub-block models in Minecraft, like hoppers, anvils, lightning rods, and flower pots that I just mentioned. Plus, we can craft beds. I really don't feel like tables and chairs are a stretch. I kind of find it odd that we have flower pots and anvils, but we can't make a wooden chair. It feels strange, especially with beds in there as well. The mods that I select for the Citadel overall, most of them are quality of life. There's very, very few building mods. I think the tables and chairs one might be the only data pack that adds anything new as far as a block goes to the game. I've got some custom textures, but people change textures all the time. Most of the stuff is quality of life. I think the only thing that encroach on big gameplay changes are shulker mites from Voodoo Beard, free cam, which I think a lot of people are probably used to seeing, and then Zero's minimaps and the full screen map. Those are the ones that I think would deviate the most as far as what the mod is capable of. You can teleport using the map mod. You can fly through the ground using free cam if you want. Shulker mites are something where you can put an endermite on purple blocks and it turns into a shulker. That's how I got my shulker to my Mushroom Island, because otherwise, as we mentioned earlier in the show, I'd have to move a shulker 50,000 blocks somehow. And so I wasn't doing that. I feel like on the Citadel, what we do with those more robust mods, like say Zero's minimap mod, for example, we just don't use it in ways that we would feel unvanilla. We don't use it to teleport. We don't use it to locate mobs or caves or resources. I don't fly through the ground. I actually have free cam toggled in a way that if I fly up against a block, it works like creative mode in Minecraft, where like you hit the thing.
There's
So
still
I
collision.
yeah, I can't accidentally fly through the bottom of the Mushroom Island and then see all the cool stuff underneath. I have to find it the normal way. And so we as a server just say, hey, these are the mods that we're saying are okay to use client side, but please, through the honor system, just like let's not use them in a way that makes you not play in survival mode. And that's just because we're 6 people at most, all of whom are friends and adults and are willing to kind of obey the spirit of the rules. Different ball game on a public server or other things like that, where things are a lot more difficult to track. But that's the idea behind it. As far as my vanilla experience, I do try to keep things vanilla-esque. A lot of the decisions I make from a mod perspective are creator based, so content based. Like, what is going to make my life a little bit easier as a content creator to showcase things, to get screenshots, to maneuver around. I really feel like if Minecraft was made today, brand new, it would have a map. I don't think that would not be a thing. And so that's why I have the map mod. And that, again, it helps me from a design perspective. It helps me see things from the top down, which I could do in Minecraft. Like, I could just go up and take screenshots. I could use the in-game maps, but they're cumbersome and it's not the best. And it saves me so much time to do it with a map in game. And because it's a pixel map, it feels organic. Like, it feels kind of what Minecraft would do if they were to implement a map system. So that's kind of where I stand with it. Now, obviously the survival guide, Johnny, is vanilla for good reason, because you're guiding people through the vanilla game. But on your other server adventures, is there any behind the scenes discussion on how quote unquote vanilla mods need to be included in the pack? And is that something that you're involved in, or do you just show up and play whatever the pack that people have put together?
Most of the time, I'm not there for the planning meetings. I'm just kind of invited as a player and usually happy to participate. I think discussions happened long before we ever started any of the servers, like with Empires and Misadventures. We haven't really added stuff piecemeal after that. And in those cases, actually, we've had a modder who's more or less like on staff, like the people who've been running the servers, Lizzie in the case of Misadventures and Fwip in the case of Empires. They had like a couple of modders that they knew sort of on speed dial, and they were maybe actively making a couple of changes as we went to add content here and there. With Misadventures, more so than Empires. Empires was more about, like, we had a mod that let us remodel some of the mounts so that each person could have a different creature with its own personality instead of a horse. That was when I was riding around on dodos in Season 2, And the gravestones on SOS were another thing that were, like, a little bit modded, but even then, we wanted them to fit the vanilla aesthetic just enough, like with the tables and chairs thing. They're using vanilla textures for the most part, or if something's like obviously a little bit different, we still try and keep it within the boundaries of what you would expect from a Minecraft item. There's not necessarily like stuff that looks ridiculously high poly or whatever. Like, it's still kind of blocky, voxel based looking stuff. And most of the builders that I play with, more to the point, I think, here, are very keen on using the vanilla block palette. And maybe they'll apply a resource pack, or they'll play with shaders or something like that, but they're happy with the blocks that we have. And any additions on top of that are typically things like player heads, like the mini block kind of thing that you're fairly familiar with as well. Yes. That's another really popular one, because it's like, whether it's mob heads or whether it kind of extends into little objects. Like one of the first ones that showed up on Misadventures was some NPC in the marketplace was selling bird houses, and so you could have one of those that just kind of went up on a wall. It's smaller than a block, but it kind of looks like a little place where sparrows could nest or something like that. And it's cute, it's quaint, it kind of fit the sort of RPG town vibe that we were going for at the start of that season. And so, yeah, like the stuff like that will come in, but most of the time I think everyone has a pretty strong idea of what feels like too far. And if that discussion ever comes up, then people will typically say, well, this, like you were saying with some of the chairs that look a little bit too ornate for you, that kind of thing, we'll talk about it and we'll try and keep that stuff to a minimum. And that just, makes sense as an open discussion for us to have. having toured West Hill like not too long ago, and having looked around all of the sort of tables and chairs and stuff, I honestly agree with you. I don't feel like it felt too out of place to me, especially considering the scale that you were working at. Some of those smaller interiors, you can imagine it being quite difficult to get around if you had solid blocks in the way, whereas all the kind of tables and chairs, some of them had collision, but some of them you could just walk through, and that was fine. That made sense. Maybe it has like the top collision for a table, but you can kind of walk through it, or you can walk through the chair that's next to it or something. It's really more about how that affects the immediate experience of exploring the space in an area that you've curated that way. And I think that's something that maybe it should be a consideration if they decide to implement furniture in future, is how easy is it to kind of move around it. I think at this stage, Mojang have kind of stuck to their guns on the notion of players create their own furniture through the blocks that we've given them, because it gives players an opportunity to play imaginatively. I understand that aspect, but hearing you say, why do we have beds but not chairs? Like, I genuinely haven't heard anybody express it that way before, and I thought, wait a minute, that does feel like a very ornate and well-crafted piece of furniture, which obviously has a function in Minecraft, and I think that's part of the thing, is like you use a chair to skip the night instead of just, using a bed to skip the night instead of using a chair to just sit down. But there's something about that concept of us being able to make beds but not really any other items of furniture that is sticking with me in a way I did not expect. So thanks, Joel. I'm going to be thinking about that one for a while now. And yeah, if anybody else has some thoughts on that, if you're able to explain to me why furniture crafting in vanilla Minecraft stops at beds, email the show and let us know, because I think that's a really interesting conversation to have.
Our last email comes in from Labasilk 18, drowned mounts. This is back from July 1st, 2025. So we're digging into the Minecraft mailbag here. Hi, Pix and Joel. I was listening to episode 356, and while you were talking about players riding turtles, I had the idea of drowned mounts. When I'm swimming or looting underwater ruins, I find drowned really easy because of how slow they are, and it would be nice to have more of a challenge in the water at night. What if Baby Drowned could ride turtles or even dolphins? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Love listening to the podcast. Lebesic 18 was slain by a drowned jockey while swimming. You got your wish.
Yes, well, yeah, I was going to say, congratulations on your 2020 foresight, because you've managed to accurately predict that the drowned would be riding some sort of aquatic creature at some stage in the future. We have Nautili on the way, and that seems like a good compromise to me, a happy medium, because I feel like baby drowned riding turtles are not a threat. If anything, the turtle would make them slower. Like they're not especially swift. Obviously, they're even slower when they're on land. They're a bit more graceful in the water, but I think the only way it would make them more dangerous would be that players would be too hesitant to swipe and miss and hit the turtle by mistake than they would be to actually deal with the drowned. So that might make the player more hesitant to kill the baby drowned, if not necessarily make the baby drowned a more difficult combat experience. Dolphins, on the other hand, I think are almost too maneuverable. I think if you find something chasing you around on a dolphin, considering how fast dolphins can move, it's a good thing they're not a threat, because half the time the player couldn't really keep up with them, or you end up getting Dolphin's Grace because you're swimming around them and then suddenly you're rocketing off in another direction. Depth Strider 3, you're gone. So I do think it's kind of funny that we don't have baby drowned riding dolphins, because they would be too difficult to actually fight against. It would be a lot more maneuverable of an opponent, and with a trident, probably pretty deadly. I can also already hear other players' complaints that the baby drowned could ride dolphins, but we couldn't. So I think that's, again, where the Nautilus comes in as something that the drowned can ride, but also something that the player can ride. Everybody's happy, especially people who like cool-looking underwater creatures, because I have grown to really like the design of the Nautilus over the last few weeks as we've been given a couple more variants of it, the undead and then the coral undead Nautilus. I think, all in all, they're a pretty well-developed creature at this point.
Yeah, I like them too. As far as the way that they look, the way that they move and stuff like that, it's different. Something that I wasn't expecting from Minecraft. I feel like the drowned or baby drowned would be I don't know that I've seen a baby drowned on a Nautilus. Do they even? Is that even possible? Like, because I feel like the weird thing about the Nautilus is that you don't realize how big it is when it swims in front of you. It's only when you mount it and you see it compared to the size of a player where you go, "Oh, this is like a meter and a half wide." Like it's a big or bigger mount, and a baby drowned on the top of it would look really funny. Like it would be very tiny, like the opposite of the chicken jockey, right? Because the jockey is bigger than the chicken in that case. But then you flip it for the Nautilus. The Nautilus would just appear huge underneath a baby drowned. I don't know if a baby drowned on a Nautilus should be faster. I feel like the drowned on a Nautilus are faster than regular drowned, right? Like because the drowned are pretty slow.
Yeah, no, they are. Sorry, I'm trying to look and see if there's anything on the Minecraft wiki about it possibly being a baby drowned. They have a 50%. The undead Nautilus has a 50% chance to spawn as a zombie Nautilus jockey, wielding a trident. It doesn't say anything about whether they can be a baby. I mean, I presume they can, but babies are already like 5% of all zombie spawns, and so It would be like the small odds of encountering a drowned riding an undead Nautilus, and then the even smaller odds then of it being a baby. Right. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, very slow on land. Both the drowned and the Nautilus, in fact. I think they can move a little bit on land now, but they get beached very easily.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past Mojang to come up with new and interesting, completely made up stuff. So rather than trying to get the drowned to ride something faster, that would be a normal aquatic animal. I would imagine something along the lines of like how a strider or a sniffer or a phantom, like those are all completely, unique monsters added to the world for the, some are friendly, but like they're beasts. They're not really real world animals. And I could see a drowned riding something that was a little bit more, unique to Minecraft. Although it did kind of make me think like we've got the camel husk now and we've got the zombie horse. And I was wondering, like, what do you think would be an aquatic mob mount beyond the Nautilus? Because the Nautilus has like some specific use cases, but it's not really meant for travel per se. I don't know. What else would you think? The first thing that came to my mind was a giant seahorse. So again, like it's a real world animal, but they're not that big. Like you can't ride them. But if it was something the size of a Minecraft horse, in the same way that bees are ginormous in Minecraft, I feel like a seahorse that was also huge that you could put a saddle on and ride would be really cool, because that would kind of fulfill the player wish for riding a dolphin, but give you maybe something that's fast in the water, which could be good for getting away from stuff. If you're a player that doesn't like confrontation, it could be good for traveling. If you're doing a lot of underwater building, like that kind of stuff could be really, really fun.
I'm thinking of the Greek myth of the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain, but also a combination seahorse, like a horse, but with like a fish tail, like front half horse,
right?
Back half mermaid, basically. And so yeah, I wonder if something like that. I believe they even had them in like it's either Ark Survival Evolved or one of the kind of like, I think they had them in Pixark. There was like a sea creature that was like this. And there's a possibility there, but it does obviously stray into a fairly specific mythological territory that maybe they would want to avoid for the sake of Minecraft feeling like an original world. But that's where my brain goes with seahorse. My brain goes front half horse because that's funny. Considering the way that horses can now swim across like the surface of water, suddenly there's a horse that works underwater as well. Would be pretty silly. But I'm imagining front half horse, but then the back half would be like the tail of a guardian. Almost like it could be a little bit silly like that, but yeah, I don't know quite how practical that makes any of it.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about guardians as well, and I thought like a giant stingray or manta ray or something like that. Again, I'm pulling sort of from real world, but if they made it kind of like Minecraft, like maybe it only has one eye, that kind of a thing, and if that could be a dual player aquatic mount, like maybe two players could ride, and instead of front back, it could be left right. Right, like you're on one on each side, and then maybe the stingray or the manta ray, whatever it is, could have like some sort of defense. Like maybe it shoots barbs or it's aggressive towards guardians, something like that. Could make it more interesting to again revisit ocean monuments with this mount, and it's a completely different experience where maybe they swim away from it, maybe they're more aggressive towards it. Like I don't know what you could do, but I feel like some sort of interaction there would be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm sort of imagining a weird hybrid of Guardians and Phantoms now, because Phantoms have that sort of ray-like shape to them as
Yeah.
well. So there's a lot of potential there. I feel like one of the things we talked about earlier, how Mojang likes to add new stuff alongside the variants of older stuff, and I think one of the things they've really been doing well lately is a bit more original creature design. Obviously, like with we go back to the Strider as an example all the time, but things like the Happy Ghast as a solution to certain types of gameplay problems, the Nautilus kind of posing something like that as well, and creatures like the Allay and the Copper Golem coming to the fore. I'm curious if they have more plans for underwater stuff in the pipeline. And we'll have to see, because for now, that's where we're going to wrap up this episode of The Spawn Chunks. Thank you so much for listening. You can find more information about the show and links to some of the stuff that we've talked about today over at our website, thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you're getting some value out of the show, why not consider putting some value back in? You can do that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. Joining our community there, pledging at any of our paid tiers, gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat. You can chat with other like-minded Minecraft players. You can listen to the show live when we record it in Discord every Monday. And we also have our monthly hangouts, where on a weekend towards the end of the month, we'll chat about what you've been up to in Minecraft this month. We currently have 269 patrons, which is down one from last week. We'd love to welcome more people in as we get into these darker months of the year. Special thanks go out to our content engineer patrons, Hunter555, Jumbo Sale, Mindtrip Media, and That Penguin Dude. And we'd also like to give a one-time shout-out to people who've recently signed up with annual memberships. So thank you to Rebecca H., Samaratu, Barnes107, and Real MC Monkey for joining us at an annual paid subscription.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. It's free. Just tell a friend about the Spawn Chunks and where they can go to listen to it. New episodes are available on Mondays on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. As I mentioned at the top of the show, there's a video version on YouTube and on Spotify. Contact the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. The RSS feed is linked at thespawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page. That's where you can listen to the render distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Johnny, but online I go by Pixel Riffs. You can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where the Minecraft Survival Guide is currently in its third season, and I'm back to streaming 3 days a week on Twitch, where I do behind-the-scenes work for my aforementioned YouTube series. I'm also the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search, and aside from that, I'm at Pixel Riffs on both Blue Sky and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
I will point you towards the Citadel Cafe, my other podcast about sci-fi and fantasy entertainment. We are coming up on episode 500, and the show's anniversary is actually today. So it's 14 years old as of right now, which is pretty cool. And hopefully recording the latest episode coming up in the next few weeks. Stephen and I have got to work out the details. You can also find me on social media, Joel Duggan, very easy to find. I will point you towards TikTok, where you will see clips of my streams. Those streams are on twitch.tv/Joel Duggan. Surprise. And I am mostly playing Minecraft. I'm pretty excited about this sci-fi build, and it's a lot of work. So I'm trying to put in the time to get some progress done. So come on by every weekday at 9 o'clock in the morning, except for Mondays, obviously, because I'm here.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, and there's a 10% chance it has a twin.